Hey there poetry pals, welcome back to another video. This week I'm going to give you some tips on how to find journals, magazines and competitions to submit your poems to. Before we go any further, please make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on. It really helps small creators like me get found. I make new videos every week about writing and reading poetry and how to be a poet and generally lots of good stuff, so yeah, subscribe. While we're on the subject, why not follow me on social media? I am Josie Alford Poet on all the things and I post top quality content. Yeah, I get fed up of YouTubers who are like, follow me on Instagram, I post mediocre stuff. I'm like, no, I post great stuff and you'd have a great time following me on social media, so why don't you just go ahead and do that. So I've made a couple of videos already about how to get your poems published, specifically like how to submit your poems, and then also another video on your submission spreadsheet. But Rose P actually commented on a previous video asking me to do one about how to find places to submit, so that's what we're going to focus on today. In this video I'm going to focus mainly on how to find places to publish individual poems or a small number of poems rather than a whole collection. If you'd like me to do a video on how to find a publisher for your whole collection, let me know in the comments below and I will of course do that. And I hope this video is proof that I do read and respond to comments. So if you do have a request of something that you'd like me to cover in a video, comment down below. And I'll link to my previous videos on how to publish poems in the description below so you can watch them if you haven't already. I hope you guys find this useful. Anyway, let's crack on with the video. I've come up with a range of tips, but they sort of mainly fall into two categories. One is how to find the publications that you want to submit to, and the other ones are how to decide if they're the right ones for you. So tip number one is Angela T. Carr's blog. I'll link it in the description below, but Angela does a lot of hard work to post monthly blog posts with loads and loads of publications and competitions that have submission deadlines that month. They are super great. I use that blog all the time and it is one of the most useful things I've found in my time in the internet by doing poetry. So I'll link it in the description below. Yeah, it's super great. It's just got a list of all of the publications that have deadlines in that month. She updates it monthly. It's fantastic. There you go. That's the number one thing you can do to find publications. Number two is Submittable. Now I've talked about Submittable in previous videos. I've yet to do a whole video on how exactly that works. If you do want to see a video on that, just comment down below. But the cool thing, but basically Submittable is an online platform that some publications use to accept submissions. It's pretty great because you've got all the information of how to submit and what they're looking for in one place. But relevant to this video, Submittable also has a Discover tab, which has all of their submissions that are open with their deadlines listed. You do have to filter it to poetry, as a lot of different art forms use the same thing, and obviously if you are watching this as a fiction writer or a short story writer, then you can filter it to that as well. The list that you get is massive and from all over the world. I've noticed that most of the ones that you find in there are American, and as I'm UK based, generally I like to send most of my submissions to UK based publications. But there's nothing wrong with submitting to America, especially in the age of the internet. Hey, let's go global, why not? But you will need to do some research to find out if these ones are the best place for your poems. So tip number three is books. If you are a poet and you want to be publishing your poems, then the number one thing you need to be doing is reading poetry as well. The cool thing is you can use your favourite poetry books, which would be, I assume, by your favourite poems, and presumably the poets who have influenced you the most, you can use them to find out where they published their poems. Near the front of the book will be an acknowledgements page where they've listed all the places where their poems have been submitted before or accepted for publication. So for example, with Don Patterson's 40 sonnets, which, hey man, if you're looking to improve on sonnets, a couple of pages in, we've got the acknowledgements page. It does include, you know, thanking for people for meticulous comments, but poems in this book have been published by The Blinking Eye, Contemporary Poetry and Contemporary Science, Elsewhere, Granter, The Guardian, Hiding in Full View, Jubilee Lines, London Review of Books, New Yorker, New York Review of Books, One for the Trouble, Ploughshares and the Sunday Telegraph. He's also been commissioned by the National Gallery, Bristol Festival of Ideas, Edinburgh International Book Festival, McSweeney's, Cambridge Thresholds Project, Whipple Museum, and the Arden Bloomsbury Shakespeare 400 Project. So that is a very, very impressive acknowledgements page, and you're looking to build up your own acknowledgements page. That's the whole reason why we're submitting individual poems places, is so that when we do go to submit our whole collection, we've got a tidy little acknowledgements page like that. But you can use your favourite poets and like maybe people who have a similar style to you to see where they got accepted, because chances are that's where somewhere you might get accepted as well. So number 4 is related to number 3, but it's just follow other poets on social media. If you're watching this video, chances are you're on social media. And if you're following other poets, especially people who are maybe in a similar place to you career-wise, but also, you know, aspirationally, people who are ahead of you. If you're following all of them, you'll keep up to date on where they're getting published and you can add those to your list. The whole idea is that if you've watched my video on submission spreadsheet, the whole idea is that you want a long list of possible publications to send your poems to, and by following poets that you look up to and admire, you can just borrow the ones that they've submitted to put them on your list. Tip number 5 is recruit your poetry pals. I have a fantastic group of poetry pals, and one of the things that we started doing when I was on my master's is for the second term we had to provide book reports on different publications. So each week we'd have to go away and research a different magazine and come back so that we could share the information with each other. What it ended up being is that by the end of the term, each of us had a list of 40 publications that were really well researched. We had a strong idea of the quality of the publication, what sort of thing they were looking for, and also the likelihood of us getting published in there. So yeah, recruit your poetry pals, make a group like that and share your lists with each other. So the first 5 tips were all about finding new places to submit. But the next tips are all about deciding whether those places are right for your work. This is really important because you have put a lot of work into your poems and you want to make sure they have the right home. You want to make sure that they are of a quality that you can see your poems being in, but also that they belong there, like what sort of genre does this publication do, and stuff like that. So here are my tips on helping to decide whether you should submit to these ones. So tip number 6 is probably the easiest one out of these ones, which is check out their website and follow them on social media. This is an easy way to pick up on their vibe. Often they will say what sort of work they're looking for, although I have to say a lot of publishers and publications will be like, we're looking for poetry that breaks the mold, and they all say really vague things without actually saying the sort of thing they're looking for. But you can definitely pick up the vibe, so still check out their website. It will give you an idea of whether your work is going to fit in there and whether they're likely to accept you. Their social media will also give you a stronger vibe of what the publication is like and also what their reach is. If they're really formal on social media, chances are they're going to be quite a formal magazine, but if they're like really friendly and, you know, witty and funny, then, you know, that's going to give you an impression of what sort of place it's going to be as well. Not to mention, the number of followers will give you an idea about whether you want to submit there as well. Now, that's not to say you should judge somewhere if they've got a low amount of followers, like people are better and worse at social media, but it definitely gives you an idea and you can make up your own minds about them. So tip number 7 is to subscribe to that magazine or buy a previous copy. Although it's worth mentioning that some are available for free, such as Ink, Sweat and Tears, which is an online poetry magazine which you do not have to pay to access. However, most of them, especially the print versions, you do have to pay for. The good thing about paying for a subscription or buying a previous copy is that you get to actually look at the quality of the publication and you get to look at the poems that they are accepting. The website unfortunately will only get you so far, but if you look at a copy and you look at the type of poems that they are accepting and publishing, that will give you a strong idea whether your poems belong with them as well. There are several questions you want to ask. Do you enjoy the poems in there? What is the quality of publication? And can you see your poems being there? The other good thing about subscribing to or buying a previous copy of a magazine is that you're supporting a poetry magazine, which is awesome. So yeah, if you've got the money to do that, you definitely should. Now, obviously, one of the cons of doing that is it does cost money, and some of us don't have the money to spare to spend on poetry magazines, which, trust and believe, I get you. So what you can do is partner up with your poetry pals who you have recruited in step 5 to share your submissions. So I generally will only subscribe to a magazine for a year just because you generally pay for a year, and then I will swap and share my subscriptions with other people who have subscriptions so that I can read a wider range of them. Definitely worth doing. Recruit your poetry pals, and yeah. So my final tip is that you should find out what you need to do to submit. Now, I've done a whole video on how to submit your poems, and it's basically read the submission guidelines and stick to them. Yes, you should do that. But one of the things you need to do is also have a look if you've got to pay, and I've definitely had a little discussion about this, but the thing you need to ask yourself is, and you need to find out, is do you need to pay to submit, and are you willing to do that? It's not just can you afford it, but are you willing to do that? Generally, my guidance for myself is that I don't pay to submit to publications. However, I will pay to enter a competition, as often the competitions do have prize money and they make that money from people paying to enter. So I'll pay to enter a competition. I won't necessarily pay to have my poem seen by an editor. Unfortunately, the poetry publishing world of individual poems in magazines, you know, the opportunities where you get paid for your work being published are few and far between and should be a lot more frequent. And unfortunately, the amount of publications that expect you to pay, not even to be published, but just to be read by the editor and possibly rejected, that's too high. In my opinion, small rant over, okay, done. So there you have it. That's my advice on finding new publications to submit your work to. I hope you found this useful. If you do have any questions on this subject, let me know in the comments. And if you do have any topics that you want me to cover in future videos, go ahead and pop them in the comments as well. I hope you're doing all right. It's this weird like lockdown moment where we're not in lockdown and life's returning to normal, but also it isn't. Oh, it's all weird, and I hope you're okay, and I hope you're looking after yourself. Don't forget to subscribe and pop the notifications on so you don't miss my next video. I hope you're all alright. I'll see you all next week. Bye.